What's going on, everybody? Let's look for Mike.
Oh,
There he is.
good.
All right.
What's up, man? Good to see
Hey,
you.
how you doing, man? Good to see you.
I'm good. I like the Bellator shirt you're rocking. Very
You like
timely.
that?
We just finished the
Yeah,
event. Yeah.
yeah, dude. You know what? I went. I got like I bought like 5 or 6 Bellator T-shirts. I'm like, you know what? Something happened to me a couple months ago. I'm like, you know what? I'm damn proud that I fought for that promotion. Let me start wearing that stuff again. I felt like, um, I'll leave names out, but I ran into a coach at the grocery store. I was wearing an old Bellator shirt, and I just didn't think anything of it. I was just wearing a shirt. And he goes, "Can't live in the past, man." And I was like, wow, maybe he's right. And then I'm like, you know what? Screw him, and I told him that later. So,
Hey, man, you did well over there. What was it? 7 straight wins at one point?
yes, it was. It was.
There you
Yeah, I did
go. Well,
well
no
over
shame
there.
in that.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So I'm going to do a little introduction. I'm just new to this. I know we just got to talking. It's really good to see you. So, hey, what's going on, everybody? We are live in the corner with my man, Mike Bohn MMA, and yours truly, Mighty Quinn MMA. Nice to see you, Mike. Thanks so much for coming on, man.
Oh, dude, anytime. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. So we're flipping the script on you today. You always interview the fighters. You always try to get information out of us, try to make us look good, try to get us the attention we deserve. Now I'm doing it to you. Okay. I
Uh,
um
uh,
I couldn't wait to get you on here. I'll never forget obviously that one night we hung out in Philadelphia, had a lot of fun. I had a few too many drinks, I remember, but that's another story for another episode. But I'll never forget when we're hanging out, and this is going to segue into something else. But we're hanging out, and it's in the downstairs, the lobby bar. It's the night after weigh-ins, which I'm going to get into how that's kind of the dead time for the most spot when it comes to the whole program of events. But some story broke out. I don't even remember what the story was, because to me what was important was it was like 1:30 in the morning, and you just jumped to it. You got right to work. You whipped out your iPad. You got to writing. You're like, oh man, okay, be right back, guys. Like, you went to handle business, and that's, like, to me, like, I understand, like, that's what journalists have to do.
mhm.
And but like, you knew to jump to it. It was 1:30 in the morning. Like I said, like, you went right to it. By the way, guys, I didn't give you the proper introduction. Mike is one of the lead editors for MMAJunkie.com, and one of the best in the business when it comes to trying to magnify us. So there you go. But yeah, so tell me what it goes into, like, as far as okay, so, like, okay, like I said about the dead time. So we have weigh-ins as fighters, and then the fight
Yep.
is the fight's the next day. Now the fight, there's a lot of media stuff involved for the fighters, the coaches, management. Really, that small window of the night of weigh-ins before the fight, that's like dead time, but not for you, the journalist, right? Like, that's when you have to capitalize. That's when you have to find people, try to get stories out, try to get, little bits of information. So take us through that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it feels like such a long time ago, right? The era that not only were we on the road, but we could kind of, hang out at the fighter hotels. And then,
Mhm.
I think that event, it was the Justin Gaethje, Edson Barboza fight. I think
That's
that was
right.
the main event of that card.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, you're out there in Philadelphia, and we have a ceremonial weigh-in, which we didn't really, especially these days, for the fight nights, it's more like one weigh-in. They don't really do a second one at night. But yeah, I mean, things happen at all hours, and it may be 1:30 on the East Coast where we were, but it's only 10:30 on the West Coast where it's still the night before. Things can happen. So yeah, you just never know. News breaks at all times. I can't remember what the story was in particular too. I think it was like a fight that broke that was not a part of the card, because of course the night before weigh-ins things happen, like people have to be hospitalized or get sick after the rehydrating or just whatever little thing it may be that causes fights to get called off on like the day of or the night before or whatever, right? So I think it was something along the lines of a fight announcement, and you gotta do what you gotta do. You reach out to the various sources that you have, whomever they may be, and you try to confirm news and get it up on the website and social media and all that stuff. So yeah, it's kind of all just about capitalizing on the moment. And in that particular scenario, I think I was one of the people on staff that had a connection to one of those fighters, and that led to me verifying the story and us putting it out. But sometimes that may always not be me. It may be one of the other reporters on staff who may have a connection to X fighter, X camp, or whatever, and that's kind of how we proceed. So yeah, but that's certainly one of the things about this job. There's no downtime, especially when it comes to mixed martial arts. It's not like other sports where there's an off season, even really. It goes 365 year round. So
Yeah,
yeah, it never
actually,
sleeps.
I was talking to somebody about that. Like, as a mixed martial artist, and like you said, 365. Our season is our career. So like we have to keep bumping up. Our whole season is our career. I do remember. I do now that you're taking me through it. Yes, you were trying to see who has a lead to get the confirmation on the news. I remember that was your biggest thing, and I remember you just trying to connect the dots with everyone else on staff. And to me, I was just like blown away. I think that's what started to get me interested. First, I have an associate's degree in communication, so this always interested me. But I
Okay.
think that's when the wheels started turning. I was kind of picking your brain. I'm like, man, this is competitive in itself. Like, like this is, it was cool to watch, man. You really inspired me. So,
Yeah,
but
I mean, that's it's definitely a race between, especially the media outlets. It's trying to get news first, trying to get stories confirmed first, trying to track down interviews first. So yeah, I mean, I think in comparison, I've covered like the NBA as well, and I've been at events for baseball, hockey, football, etc. And I see how the media interact with each other, and I think MMA media is pretty cordial when it comes to that sense. I think we are competitive, but we're also pretty respectful of each other as well.
okay, cool. And you just made me think of something else. How did you get into writing journalism? You just said you cover the NBA. You work for Newsweek as well. So tell me how it all. When did you know you wanted to be a journalist? When did you know that this was your thing, or did it just happen organically?
Yeah, I think it happened organically. I mean, it was definitely born out of the passion for MMA, and it was actually funny. Just a few weeks ago, I think it was like February 5th, it pops up on my Facebook, like a old photo, one of those memory things, and it's like 15 years ago, a photo from UFC 67, and that's the first event I went to and attended in person. And I was like 15 years old at the time. And I bought one ticket by myself where my mom had to go to Vegas for a work conference. And I went down there with her because there was a UFC fight that weekend. I think the main event was Anderson Silva and Travis Lutter. And like Rampage made his UFC debut on that card. Machida. Machida made his debut. Frankie Edgar made his debut. It was actually Crow Cop made his debut on that card as well. So that was like a stacked one back then. But yeah, I remember just going to the event, and that completely transformed my perspective of how much I loved the sport and how passionate I was about being around it and stuff. There's one thing we'll always give Dana White credit on, something they said that's very true, is like if you are kind of a fringe MMA fan and you go you like watching on TV and stuff, if you have the chance to go to a live event, and I know they're kind of fewer and further between now with fans, but you go to those, and I think it takes your perspective to a whole nother level. I think you kind of fall in love with it much deeper when you get to actually be there for like a live card, especially a big one. So that's really what did it for me. And from there, I just slowly started getting more and more into it. I started a website with some friends where we'd do like predictions for each fight card. And of the group of people that kind of contributed to this little blog we had, I was the one who was always editing the stories and putting together the graphics and the posts and everything to make it look good. And it just went deeper and deeper from there. As I went to school, I started transforming a little bit more into writing classes and journalism classes, and really just took off from there. Started a bigger website of my own and was doing a lot of writing there, and then got hired to MMA Mania, which is a site that's owned by Vox, this company that owns MMA Fighting and Bloody Elbow as well. And then about a year later, I had an opportunity from MMA Junkie. They approached me, and yeah, I took that one up, and it's been almost 9 years since.
Awesome. Great story. To go to what you were saying about going to a UFC event, there's nothing like it. There really isn't. For those of you who know what we're talking, when the Baba O'Reilly hits going into the main card, nothing like it. And then when the bass drops after, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. And now, my wife, she had been to several events of mine. Obviously she didn't really enjoy the events that I fought at. We went to a couple of smaller events that we saw friends fight. But I remember the first UFC we went to together, and like now I'm not fighting. I remember, we had some friends on the card. It was at Sunrise, Florida. It was her first event. And then she saw that intro and she saw the crowd into it, even the undercards. And And it was the same night Mike Perry and Alex Oliveira were dancing together.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
so
that
she was
one
just
was
going.
classic.
But I remember after the beginning intro hit, she just turned. She goes, "I see it now." She like that's when she like really understand. Like, yeah, there's more to this. Like, and I'd been with her for a while. Were we married yet? No, we weren't married yet. We were engaged, and she just like there's just so much more to it than just the training and the fighting, and there really is just something about it that's just amazing that you just really can't put your finger on it until you're there.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's been to a lot of live events, and yeah, it definitely has something special to it, especially when you go for the first time. And it's funny to think. I think just coming up next month, we have the 10-year anniversary. I think of the event here in Toronto that set the attendance record, and I remember going to that one with like 60,000 people, and that was just crazy. And kind of seeing that taken to another level. So yeah, man. I mean, I think the fan experience enhances these events so much more. I mean, I know we're kind of accustomed to a lot of these ones having no crowds anymore, and hearing the corner and stuff is really cool, and that insight and those moments you get without a crowd. But I think MMA is always better when you have a full audience and stuff with it.
I agree. Those who have actually, I don't even know if they really do them anymore because MMA is so popular now. But like when I started, and you probably know about this stuff, smoker shows. Like you like so. Are you familiar with those?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, yeah. So those of you who aren't, smoker shows were basically like when I was coming up, it's like, okay, they would have a boxing match here, kickboxing match there. I remember that I did one MMA fight because MMA wasn't legal. The first round was boxing, the second round was kickboxing, the third round was grappling to make it mixed martial arts. Anyway, smoker shows just throw these cards on together, all these fights on these one card, and they were in crowds like that. Now, smoker shows got their name because people would be in the crowd smoking, and it was so tight together that the smoke be all over the place. But there was maybe 250, 300 people in the whole crowd, and that's kind of like what it is now. It's almost like these are smoker shows the UFC's putting on, but obviously a lot more expensive to go to. So, but it really is a little different. Actually, I haven't been to one of the ones at the Apex yet. And I know that's kind of they're kind of doing other things like that with a little less people around the country, but it is a little different. Now, one thing I want to say to you now, I know MMA fighters are kind of known for blue collar. We're a little bit more accessible than other professional fighters and stuff like that. That being said, MMA fighters aren't always so approachable, especially when we're cutting weight. I know I was, especially earlier on in my career, I was a jackass when I was cutting weight. I just really didn't want to be bothered. And I think I've even snapped at one or two reporters, and probably at the level of these shows, probably just some kid doing something for the local paper or even school. Feel horrible about that looking back. Now that you're older, you're not so aggressive. I had a conversation with Masvidal last week about just like how you're just so much less aggressive when you're older. You just don't care, like it doesn't mean that much, And so have you ever had to deal with that, or like maybe early on, did you ever have to deal with something where you're like, oh wow, maybe I gotta watch myself when I'm trying to approach these guys?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had, especially in like the weight cutting moments. I mean, I feel like a lot of the times, I mean, it always bugs me when I go to these events and they do like a media day on the Thursday before the weigh-ins. I mean, I feel like with the UFC, especially on these fight nights, they have it more or less down pat where they make the media day Wednesday, and then Thursday there's pretty much nothing going on, and then Friday. But like I know next week, especially for the pay-per-views, they do a press conference like Thursday night. And next week we'll have Masvidal and Covington doing that, but we have that for pretty much all the pay-per-views, and it's like I feel so bad for you guys up there because that's right before the night before, especially I imagine right when it's getting at its hardest point. But there has been moments. I mean, the one that always really stands out to me, and maybe you take it as like a learning lesson, but when I talked to Uriah Hall. And it was, ironically enough, in Ireland, in Belfast, when he was going to rematch Mousasi, who, of course, just fought tonight for Bellator over in Dublin.
Oh, Dublin, yeah.
I think Mousasi was supposed to fight someone else, and Uriah Hall took that rematch on like very short notice after he had already beaten Mousasi a few years earlier with that spinning kick out in Japan. And we went up to him at the media day, and this is when I think Uriah Hall's got infinitely better over the years in terms of how he communicates with the media. But he used to be very, very rough around the edges a few years ago. And I remember just asking him, being like, "Hey, can you explain to to me how this fight came together, this rematch. And that was the opening question of our on-camera interview. And he just looked at me and he was like, "Isn't that your job to know?" And he just wasn't wanting to give me any sort of answer. And I was like, well, I mean, this isn't necessarily for me. I mean, I kind of know, but it's for the audience who may not be privy. I mean, every question that you ask isn't always for yourself. You know, it's trying to get you to either say it to the public or things like that. And that one, I was just like, okay, well, maybe I could have asked the question better. You know, maybe he's just in the middle of a bad weight cut or whatever the case may be. But that's one that's always like stuck to me, to be like, well, like, you know, sometimes, yeah, it doesn't always go perfectly, but that's one, as you kind of say, for like an example of someone that, whether he was in the middle of the weight cut or he's tired from, you know, traveling halfway around the world on short notice, probably a combination of everything, tired with the time change and stuff. But yeah, that was kind of a moment where, I mean, there's nothing you can really do. He's there at media day. It's not like I approached him in an environment where, you know, he's walking out of the sauna or something like that. He's there to do interviews and to answer questions. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, I haven't really had too many bad moments. I definitely count myself as grateful for that. And yeah, but other than that, I don't really have one that stands out too bad. I feel like being around for as long as I have a pretty good gauge on when to engage with people and when to not.
Very, very true. Very true. So do you have a favorite interview that you ever did?
Ooh, man. It's hard to say. There's just been so many over the years. They kind of blend together at this point. There were some cool ones that we actually did a few years ago. And it's funny because you say it's a favorite. It's never seen the light of day. But we did, you know, in Las Vegas, how I can't remember the name of it. There's that super big wheel that
Yes.
I can't remember what it's called, but it has like, you walk into the actual things and it's like a little booth in each one that's pretty big. For whatever, I think we were there for International Fight Week, some sort of media event. And we had like 5 or 6 fighters with us, a couple UFC PR people, and we went into the things and we were doing interviews as we were going in the you know, whole thing that was going up. So we're at like the top of Vegas and it's such a cool backdrop and such a cool view. And we get down and go back to the hotel to do the interviews, and our video guy had lost the memory card that had all the interviews on it. So they all went to by the wayside. But I remember having a great one with Joseph Benavidez there, with Uriah Faber there. Those were really cool. I mean, there's a great one with our man Dustin Poirier over in Abu Dhabi, you know, right outside the racetrack over there before he fought Connor the second time. Over there in Abu Dhabi. That one really stuck with me just because it was something he was willing to do, you know, outside of his media schedule. And I think he had already just done like, you know, hours of phone interviews that the UFC made him to do. So really appreciate Dustin for always being so good with his time to me. So that one definitely stands out.
Yeah. Dustin's the best. So, you know, circling back on what we said about, you know, fighters, you know, talking to you, when he said, isn't that your job? You know, it is your job. Now, that being said, and I learned this when I started doing commentary, if these fighters don't give me something to talk about, I'm going to give myself something to talk about, you know, and you're going to give yourself something to write about, do a blog about. So fighters got to be careful sometimes. You know, you have integrity. You're not going to do that. But there's times, like I remember one time I was doing commentary and this dude snapped at me and I was like, man, you know what? He's not even that good. You know, I was like, man, maybe I should just make him sound like crap on the feed. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to even get into it. But yeah, fighters, if you're watching, you gotta be careful of that. You know, it always comes back. So, all right, now I'm gonna pick your brain for my sake. So now I'm starting this. I'm gonna try to do this. Like this is gonna go on YouTube. Mike, I told you I was doing those blogs about the review. I haven't really been doing them lately. Maybe I'll go back to them. So if I'm gonna go somewhere, like what kind of equipment do you recommend? Right now, I got a backdrop. Actually, my wife made this. My wife made this for me. She did a pretty good job with that.
No,
So
I think that looks great. It's definitely a little better than mine. I just got a couple posters. I'm trying to do something a little bit similar, but yeah, I think that looks great.
Yeah, I didn't want the whole. Well, I don't have the space for it either. But like, I didn't want the whole big thing. I do want a couple of things here. Do I have it around? Oh yeah, I should have brought it over, but you probably even have one. Well, I want to somehow get this in there. My Coach of the Year trophy when I won that, I was real proud of that. And I have Bellator when I fought Sayada Wad. They gave out these Hoist Gracie bobbleheads. And I got, at one point I had like 4 of them, but like the one I have now, I was holding, I remember, I was talking to Hoist and I was with Glover. Glover was talking to Hoist, and I kept saying in my head while I'm talking, should I ask him to sign it? Should I ask him to sign it? No, I don't. I'm like, and I never asked him. Then Glover had a damn pen, and Glover said, Hoist, I got to ask you to sign this. And for some reason, I was too shy. And now I'm like, you know what? Now I want to look at that thing, and I want to remember, don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to take shots. You know, and like, I don't know why. And that's, so maybe I'll get it signed from him one day. But anyway, so that's my little story. I want to have those two things on here somehow. But so as far as equipment, like this thing standing on a tripod right now with a light ring on it. And I think it's doing the job. But eventually I think I'm going to have to go to a camera and just put this straight to YouTube. And, or the one thing that bothers me is like, I want to go if I want to go somewhere, like I did an interview with George last minute a couple weeks ago, and I just had my selfie stick and it was like all over the place, you know, and plus, I mean, I could practice, but, like, so what do you recommend as far as microphones, stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it just depends completely what you're looking for. I mean, obviously, you know, when I kind of go on the road, I have, as you can kind of see here, like just a basic tripod and, you know, mic flag, like a Rode mic are always good. They're easy to find on like just Amazon or whatever. But if you're kind of just sitting there like doing your thing, if this is going to be the majority of your content, I think, you know, a light ring is perfect. If you want to upgrade to, you know, just like a simple DLSR camera, those just as video. I mean, I don't think you need to do anything that's extremely expensive or anything like that, you know. Obviously I have to pay a little bit, but as long as it can record, you know, HD video, I think, you know, you're fine. You're not doing stuff that, you know, people are on the move. You're not shooting like, you know, huge press conferences where there's 8 people on the dais, or you know, people like training where they're moving in super high speed and stuff. It's more or less just going to be kind of sitting around, you know, a tripod, a camera, and a microphone and a light pretty much can do the trick for you. I mean, that's what I take on the road everywhere I go. And, you know, whether you're kind of doing a stand-up interview or, you know, having the person stand in front of the camera where it's just them and not anyone beside them, like holding a microphone, those are kind of the easiest ways to go. It's definitely not a massive investment, but yeah, I think as far as what you're doing now, I mean, even your computer camera, if you have like a MacBook or whatever, those things are pretty handy, whether you're using Zoom or, you know, like whatever program through that's actually on like your built-in camera mic. But there always is, you know, upgrades and more expensive options. It's just depending on how high tech you want to get with it.
So, what software do you use? Like instead of like Zoom, or like I honestly, the reason why I want to do Instagram Live, it's just so much easier. It's so much accessible as opposed to, oh, put this code into your phone. But now I'm hearing there's someone else. 2 people told me about something yesterday. I forgot what it is, where you just text them a link and it pops up.
Yeah, maybe StreamYard.
StreamYard, that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what we use, and that's been really good to us. I mean, especially we weren't doing very many like video Zoom interviews pre-COVID, but once we were all in lockdown and everyone was just sitting around, especially in those first, you know, 6 or so months, there was a lot of interviews being done, and we were like, we need to figure out a good way to do this. And one of our video guys suggested StreamYard, and it's been a godsend for us. It's very user-friendly. I don't think it takes really any technological sophistication to figure it out. It's just clicking a couple buttons, you know, 1 person on camera, 2 person on camera, whatever. It's really easy. So that's what I'd suggest for you.
Awesome. Well, Mike, I think that's all I got. If there's anything you'd like to add, you know, the floor is yours.
Yeah, well, give us some insight on next week, man. I mean, this is exciting stuff. I know you've been in those ATT doors. I mean, I got to ask you, what's your feeling on, you know, Masvidal and Covington? I know you're close with people. I know you're with George, but can you give us any history, what it was like in the gym when stuff was going crazy with those two or anything like that?
Okay. You know what? Well, I get a little bit. So I had one story that just showed how close these two were. These two came in and they were just, you could tell that they had a pact. Like whenever we did shark bait groups, like I would wrestle with them and stuff like that. These two had a pact. They wanted to take over the world. Like, there was no question. It was them against the world, you know? And I remember one time I was sparring. It was like my second to last sparring day before I had a fight. It was actually before my last fight to 155. So everything was personal, you know? It was my first fight going into 155. Remember, everything was personal. And I remember, they came into training late, and I was sparring in the cage with George Soteropoulos. And then, you know, a cage is, especially at the old gym at American Top Team, the cage is big. It's not necessarily big enough for 2 pairs. And these two just walked in and started doing their thing. And I was like, you know what? These fucking two, man. Like this, and I just got out of the cage. I was like, I don't want to deal with it. And I remember George was so mad for like 3 days. But then Soteropoulos, not Masvidal. So, but then like, it's whatever, just whatever, move on. And just, I've seen them. I hung out with them when the UFC was in Orlando. I train with them all the time. I've done hundreds of rounds with the both of them. And then I remember things started going sideways a little bit when I just saw that they just had different training partners, and it wasn't necessarily that. It wasn't necessarily that, like, because, like, oh, maybe a different look, you got to get some, but you could just tell something was up. And then I remember hearing it in the media, and I was like, it was almost like I was too close to really see. I didn't really know about it till it was announced that there was like a feud. And then I remember one day, George is walking in the gym. Kobe's on one side of the gym, and the coach is, hey, Quinn, can you go get George? Just make sure he goes to the wrestling room. Like, I was like, wow, they're really serious. I had never seen one-on-one spats with the two of them. I do remember a couple times that they were kind of like, oh, starting to mention interviews. And I always wondered how it would be, because at this point they're both ranked like top 8 in the world. So It's like you knew this collision course was coming, and to both their benefit, they actually did handle it really well up until it was unmanageable, so to speak. And now, you know what? Now there's a lot of hype behind both of them. They're both going to make a lot of money with this, so I'm really happy with it. So that, I guess that's the best I got. But I'll be an open book. I don't break code. I don't talk about training, but as far as any other stuff, I can do that for you.
No, I mean, I think that's good insight. Again, I don't want to put you in an awkward spot or anything, but yeah, it should be an interesting next week here. I saw, the stuff they were doing with Stephen A. Smith, that split screen interview where it was mostly just like screaming over each other. So it's going to be curious. I wonder when like the last time they were in the same room together was. It's probably been a little while.
For me with them, it was probably before George fought Ben Askren.
Okay, so like early 2019.
Yeah, like well before that.
Wow.
And they're just it's like it's crazy, and I saw them both fairly recently. I saw Colby around the holidays, and they're just I'm just glad they're both doing well, and hopefully they continue to do well after this.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's a big one. Well, I appreciate that insight, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt. Anything I can do for you, man. Thank you, man. Thank you so much for working your ass off to make this sport look as good as it does. We really, fighters don't thank you enough, and or you in the media enough, and I really appreciate that. Yeah, sometimes we don't want to deal with the media. I'm sure you don't want to deal with the fighters either, so it's all good. But that's all we got. Thank you so much, Mike.
Hey, anytime, man. You guys are all great, and appreciate you having me on.
You got it. Again, we'll do it again sometime.
Sounds good, man. Anytime.